Hello and welcome to Marketing Global Edition with me, Jasmine Montgomery.
And me, Piers Geiler. So what are we talking about today, Jasmine?
Well, it's been just over a year since Elon Musk rebranded Twitter to X. So I thought it'd be really interesting to ask the question, a year on, has Musk pulled off a branding blinder, or is it a branding blunder?
So he bought Twitter back in October 2022 for, oh gosh, 40 billion. And he's just rebranded it to, well, he rebranded it to X in July of last year. God, I don't even know my facts. Just started 2023.
Yeah, it's been a year, and it's a funny thing because I think from what I understand, he really doesn't think much of branding people. So, I don't think he'd think much of us. Apparently, when he had like his first ever startup, was called he reached out to a branding agency, and they gave him this name Zip2. And he thought it was completely rubbish because obviously you can spell two TWO or TOO or the number two. And he said, what a load of cobblers that was, that he had this URL that didn't make any sense. And he talked about the fact that he thought branding people were rubbish, and really it's just common sense. But I don't know if it's just common sense when you kill off a brand worth $20 billion like Twitter was.
Oh, so we're smarter than Musk, are we?
Well, I certainly don't think we're better at building rocket ships, and nobody would drive a car built by you or me, Piers. But I don't know. I mean, let's see. Like, I've never lost a client $20 billion. Have you?
No, no. Okay, so what rebrands have you done, Jasmine, in your long and illustrious career?
So I've done some, I rebranded Dresdner Kleinwort Wasserstein to Dresdner Kleinwort. I worked on Mittelsteel becoming ArcelorMittal. You and I both worked on things like Nine Mobile in Nigeria, like Safaricom in Kenya, like Zain, going through refreshes in the Middle East. What about you?
Gosh, the rebrand of Barclays globally. I've worked on Toyota. That was quite interesting. The cooperative group. What else have I done? Guggenheim Partners, Statoil, Orange. Yeah, a few from the
I mean,
past.
it's a terrific list. I mean, you were at Interbrand, you were at 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲, you've worked on some of the top brands in the world. How often did we talk about refreshing, but how often did they actually change their name?
Very, very, very few do actually. I mean, it's not unless it's really needed. I mean, the first one I ever did was Bass, the original ever trademark, which was a brewing company, changed into a sort of hospitality brand, and that was rebranded to Six Continents. But that had to happen because the Bass name was just irrelevant for that, really. And the other one was 𝐭𝐡 International. They had operations in they had other brands, other telco brands, about 7 countries, and they rebranded everything, or we rebranded everything to Ooredoo, if you know Ooredoo. So that was
Oh, I mean,
necessity to bring 7 names into one.
yeah, it's a really risky thing to do if you have a lot of brand equity. I think the reason a lot of our clients don't do it is because they don't want to throw away a $20 billion asset. By the way, I should say that we should give credit to that valuation of 20 billion to our friend of this program, Joanna Seddon and her brilliant company Prescient, who do brand valuation. But I think it is a really risky thing to do because you do risk throwing away a lot of brand equity.
So what are the good reasons to rebrand then, Jasmine?
I think some good reasons include things like, you've been sued by another company for trademark infringement. Perhaps you've radically changed, the products and services you offer. Perhaps your CEO was caught in flagrante delicto in a public space, and that became a meme all over Twitter now.
And has that happened? Do you ever known that to happen?
Well, not so much not the being caught with a sheep thing, but we had a client a number of years ago who, in the Middle East, I won't say the name, but it was a bank, and their entire management team had been thrown in jail for fraud. And that is a good reason to rebrand. That's the moment to seriously think about changing your name. Maybe, I wonder if somebody like Boeing is thinking, boy, this would be a great time to have a different name.
Well, okay, so there are 7 steps to a successful rebrand, and I've actually written them down. So I have some.
Go on then, Piers. Tell us the 7 steps to a successful rebrand. We want to know from branding guru.
Well, yeah. Number 1, find a name. Find an appropriate name, a name that doesn't infringe on someone else's trademark.
That is literally the most important. If you do nothing else, you just don't get sued, is like the bottom line of rebranding. Anyway, carry on.
2, IP, intellectual property. Secure the trademark and domain name for your business so no one else can use it.
Right.
URLs are very important. In fact, probably better guide than trademarks now. But number 3, portfolio. Be clear about your brand architecture so everyone knows who you are and what you offer. Number 4, create a distinctive logo, something that's ownable and potentially registerable, actually. And that'll be very interesting in the subject we're going to talk about. Number 5, brand identity. Create a differentiated brand look and feel that punches and cuts through the boring, dull, so many brands are so boring and dull nowadays, but we'll come on to that. 6, proposition. Clearly communicate what you stand for and why anyone should care. And number 7, brand safety. Protect your brand's reputation at all costs.
Okay, so I think it's super interesting. If those are absolutely right, you're completely right. Those are the things that any sensible company should be doing if it's looking at rebranding. Has X done those things, and has it done them well? And, the first one, so your first one, which I think is so right, is, come up with a name that does not infringe anybody else's trademark, right? Because don't get sued has to be the holy grail of all of this. Meta, X is actually not owned by Elon Musk. He doesn't own the trademark for X, which I find mind-blowing. It's owned by Meta and Microsoft. They have registered trademarks. So Microsoft has Xbox. Meta actually has a trademark for the name X in the social media category. And, it's completely bonkers to me that he's picked a name that is owned by not just other companies, but really other companies with deep pockets. Yeah,
so there's no way we would recommend taking that course if we were advising them, because we know that those big brands would come chasing, and they may well.
Right. I mean, I guess certainly no normal client would do that. I guess if you are a man worth $250 billion, you don't really care about getting sued. But it does break the golden rule of branding.
He hasn't been sued though, has he?
He has not been sued. Fascinatingly, he has not been sued by Meta or Microsoft, and I really don't know why. He is being sued by X Social Media, a Florida-based company who no doubt are getting some great publicity and hopefully some money from him. But yeah, weirdly not by Meta, and I don't know why.
I mean, there are some easier ways to do it. Come up with a name that no one really has heard of, a completely made-up name like Accenture or Verizon. That's one way of doing it.
Yeah, and I think that was always the way that we always would do with clients, is try and come up with something that's inherently ownable. But it's really fascinating when you look at kind of some of the new rebrands. You look at obviously there's something like Alphabet, Google going to Alphabet, or its parent company. Alphabet is an existing word, hard to register, will already have been registered by loads of people. Meta, I mean, Meta was interesting because they made such a bet on the metaverse. And that clearly hasn't really come to fruition. I mean, I was actually in Facebook's offices a few weeks ago, and one of their employees there, who shall not be named, was saying it's kind of embarrassing because we bet on the metaverse and the metaverse isn't really the thing. But it also, of course, means kind of self-referential, the word meta, which is funny when Meta owns Facebook and Instagram that are all about people referencing themselves and showing you how they live. It's a funny, I don't know if they intended that pun. But, and Meta's been sued several times, like 4 times for trademark infringement. But by actually by
that sort of just go for it. What's Facebook used to have a motto, move fast and break things. Interesting, they need to change that, so it's now move fast with a stable infrastructure.
Oh, that is such a snore fest. Are you serious?
Yeah, it's true.
That is the most boring thing I've ever heard. Oh my God. I always liked Google's Don't Be Evil, but we're going to come on to what you stand for in a bit. It is funny that the tech bros just seem to sort of ignore the legal advice and just fight the lawsuit down the road. I feel like you would admire that, Piers.
You go on.
Yeah, I mean, I think what is interesting to note is there are like 900 active US trademarks, trademark registrations covering the letter X. So it's murky territory.
So if there's so many registrations, I mean, how can it be protectable? I mean, that's just way too many, right?
It's a great question. And, you know, it's always funny to me that actually, like, you end up with hundreds of trademarks for something. The whole point is it's supposed to be super unique. And, you know, I don't know. I mean, I think in some ways what this tells me is I wonder if we're facing like the end of trademarks, you know, that everything is so crowded that actually there will always be other conflicting trademarks, even registered, but also that kind of big companies are just saying, to hell with it, sue me. I'm going to have a good name.
Well, and who's going to take on Elon Musk with his 251 billion, you know,
right.
I mean, he's just probably thinking, well, bring it on.
Yeah. And so I guess if you're a big company, if you're a big company, you know, looking at this, you might decide to pull a Musk and just find a great name and battle it out. If you're a small business, I think it's still worth, you know, registering your trademark. Okay. So that's trademarks. That's great. I think the second thing that you said was, you know, secure, once you've found something that doesn't infringe, secure the intellectual property for your business. Well, you know, he hasn't done that, right?
He hasn't, but the rumor is he is trying.
Yeah, but, you know, the fact that he's thrown X into this world where like his lawyers, his legal team are going to have this huge, incredibly costly battle on their hands. I mean, trying to register X around the world, you know, there is no global trademark registry. You have to register in, you know, each country by country. I mean, in Europe, there's the CTM, there's sort of a common trademark registry, but, you know, you have to have a massive strategy. It's going to cost tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to pursue this trademark across the world. It's quite bonkers.
It does seem a bit antiquated, doesn't it? I mean, for me, you know, when we're doing naming, when we're coming up with the new brands, the most important thing is the URL. If you can get a .com, then you know pretty much that name is not being used by anyone else. Because if you're a big company and you've, you know, and you're trading, you're going to want the .com. So if it's free, happy days. Or you know, doing similar searches near it. So
and nothing is free. I mean, every word in the Oxford English Dictionary has been registered. They're all gone. So anything that makes sense. I mean, I think that's why, like, it's so amazing to me that Alphabet gets Alphabet. I mean, they must have bought it off somebody, because whether you want to be money.com or, you know, sex.com or pinkgiraffe.com, like every single word, giraffe.com, they're all gone. But also every combination of 4 and 5 letters. So even 𝐒𝐭𝐡, which is a stupid name, is gone. So it's incredibly hard to find an available .com.
But Musk has got the best, right? He's got X.com, which is fantastic. I mean,
did he
can't tell you how good it is, actually. The name is X. The logo is X. The URL is X. The whole thing
like that.
It's like a god of a name and a logo. Personally, I think it's absolutely brilliant. And better still, his email is e@x.com. Come on, you've got to admire that, right?
I mean, I think it's fascinating that you know, there are only 3 single letter .com names in the world, because he bought it. He bought the name from some guys called Pittsburgh Powerhouse in exchange for cash, some equity in PayPal. But
that must have hurt.
At the time, that must have really hurt. And they were smart. They were no.
He's laughing about that. They're laughing about that now. Yeah. Yeah,
but the people who assign domain names, the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, the IANA, only allowed out X.com, Q.com, and Y.com. So there are only 3 single letter domain names in the world. And
sorry, what were they? X, Q, and
Z. I'm sorry, Z.com.
Right. Okay, so what are the other 2? We know about X, obviously.
Right. So Q.com is Quantum Fiber Broadband, which is a little
known organization.
It's a Lincolnshire-based, that's a tiny little, well, it's a perfectly respectable but quite small like province in the UK. It's a Lincolnshire-based internet service provider, and they really should be more famous than they are, given that they own one of the only 3 single-letter domain names in the. I mean, they should be a global brand with that name. Z.com, from my research, seems to be an online brokerage in business in Thailand, although it seems to be. The website's mostly in Thai, and my Thai is a bit rusty. Put Thai nid noika, but like rusty. So Z.com seems to be, I think it's owned by GMO, which is a Japanese conglomerate. And then 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲.com is kind of they're co-branded in Malaysia. Bisa cakap Melayu, lebih baik. So that's my Malay for you. But that they describe themselves as an internet group, but you know, I'd never heard of them. And frankly, they're seriously in need of some branding. GMO, if you're listening, call us. You need our help. So, you know, if you're a small business looking to protect your intellectual property, you absolutely need to register your trademark. But as Piers says, really your domain name. And if you can find, if you have a .com, amazing.
Yeah, no, I think for me, if you're you know, one thing to do as a big business is just search through your archives, see what you own. There's so many times we've worked with big brands where actually the name and the .com has come from something previously registered, or they own the .com and they've kept it on. So look in your archives. That
is super smart advice, because actually people are squatting on name.com, like on names all over the place. There are all sorts of unused names. People might own them already. That's a really terrific idea. Okay, Piers, your third thing that you talked about in effective rebrand is to consider your brand architecture, right? Your portfolio. So what do we know about what X exists? What
X is just part of what he's got, but it is right at the heart of everything. So he's got Tesla. Okay, he has brought electric cars to the masses, right? He was a pioneer in it, and now they're mainstream. And he's done it in a way where he's broken the rules. There's no dealerships. There's no advertising. People who own the cars do their own do talk about their own cars. That's how they do it. There's no advertising for that. They've got
people who own their own Tesla talk about their own car.
Yeah, they do. Have a look. Have a look, and you get people demonstrating their own cars of how to open the doors and how to make the rear seat art and all sorts of stuff like that. Interestingly, actually, if you look at the models they've got, they are called Model S, Model E, which I'll come on to in a minute, Model X, and Model Y. So this is what I love. He's authentic. He's full of wit and humor. He makes his brands sexy and fun. His cars are called sexy. Incidentally, the E, he had to change that to a 3. So it's now Model 3, but it still reads as sexy because Ford owned the trademark of Model E. So there you go. These things happen. Anyway, so he's got Tesla. He's got SpaceX. So X is for exploration all around the world, or trying to put people on Mars. The other amazing thing he's done is, you know, people say you can't reuse rockets. You can never land a rocket, you know, once they've gone up. But he's managed to do that. So again, he breaks the rules. That's what, you know, you can tell I like him, right? Number 3, PayPal. You know, finally a safe way to pay online. Fantastic, right? So all these brands. On top of that, he's got X. He's got a whole brand architecture, but it is a bit disparate.
I mean, he's got X.AI, right? So the AI company, and then he's got some that have nothing to do with X. Well, that have no X in their name. So he's got like Neuralink, implanting chips into people's brains, and then the hilarious. I mean, sometimes I, as you will no doubt glean at some point in this interview, like I am not a fan, because I think he's a tosser, but sometimes he's hilarious.
Come after you for that. You know that.
What's that?
He'll come after you for that.
No, I'm kind of scared. I am quite scared. Please don't come after me, Elon. I'm very small. But he's got this like transportation company, and he called it the Boring Company. So he has a sense of humor. I mean, he's very funny. But the other thing that makes me laugh is that he's called one of his kids X. So his kid is actually called, it's pronounced X-A12, but it's written like, it's like X and then that sort of AE and then A-XI. It's a kid he had with Grimes, and she talked about like X stands for the unknown variable, and AE is the elven spelling of AI. I mean, do you think they mean, like, what do they mean by elven, Piers?
Elves, of course. Elvish language.
You think that's elfish language?
I really do think it is, actually. Yeah. Knowing him, he is, you know, slightly different. That's why we love him. He's like a visionary, relentless, unstoppable, different, and slightly crazy.
He is completely crazy. I mean, I think that, like, you know, if he suggested that X could be a temporary name, and, you know, I see it as, is it part of a bigger picture where he's trying to brand everything with an X so that he, at some point, he can link all his businesses and sort of, you know, be this kind of megalithic company that does everything. And he said that maybe he would rename X, but, you know, if he's naming everything X and he rebrands X to something else, does he have to rebrand his kid as part of his portfolio?
Who knows? Who
What
knows?
does the future look like?
Do you know what? I wouldn't put it past him. You know, I actually think, let's
Good.
wait and see what happens with X. I do think that X is a bigger concept, and I think it could end up being, you know, the holding company to all of his things. And who knows what will happen to what was Twitter? Who knows? Anyway, that's brand architecture.
On that note, we are going to take a quick break to hear from our lovely sponsors, and we will be back in a minute. Don't go away, because we're going to come to a conclusion about whether it has been a success or a failure. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Marketing Global Edition is sponsored by 𝐒𝐭𝐡, the ad generator for small businesses that serves you effective and affordable ads in seconds. And by 7Brands, the international advertising and branding agency that has worked with clients around the world from Coca-Cola to Facebook.
Okay, we're back. All right. So number 4 on your list, Piers, was, you know, a logo, creating a distinctive and ownable logo, right? So has he done that for X?
No, for Tesla and SpaceX, he used a company called, I have to remember this now, RO Studio. But for X, he didn't do any of those things.
No, in fact, you know what he did? It's such an affront to branding consultants like us. I'm very upset by this. He just asked users of Twitter. He just asked people on, you know, X, formerly known as Twitter, to suggest logos. And some dude, Sawyer Merritt, who was the founder of the apparel brand Twin Birch, I don't know who they are, but you know, he just suggested it. I think it was something that they had. Again, it was kind of back in the archives. It was created for a show that he was going to do with that Elon was going to do, and it's incredibly generic. It was originally created by an engineer called Alex Torville. I don't know, and it's a bit of code.
Totally disagree with you. It is the ultimate digital logo. It is fantastic. I mean, on every level, it's fantastic. It is the URL. It is the name. It is the logo. It fits in an app button. It fits on every single social media bit of paraphernalia you need. It is just so simple. It communicates. I really do quite love it.
You do like it. I mean, I guess I can identify with the fact that, like, it fits in a square, it fits in the app button, but it is inherently like not a designed thing. It's a piece of Unicode. Some people think it's from a font owned by Monotype, and I tried to call Monotype to find out if he actually has paid them anything for it, and it didn't work out. But anyway, I don't know. I just think it lacks any unique element of design. You couldn't trademark. I know I'm obsessed with trademarks, but, like, you know, that's the building blocks for branding. That's the way you protect stuff. There's nothing inherently.
He protects it. He's got £251 billion. He makes it quite a scary thing to take on. You know, some people might, but I think with his attitude, he will make it a success. Okay,
so your fifth point, your point about, I mean, you know, you're doing a good job of making me fall in love with it, right? But, like, I don't know. So the fifth thing, okay, so we said logo, but actually beyond the logo, right? There's other stuff. We always tell clients, like, it's not just about your logo, it's about the whole, you know, whole differentiated look and feel, your colors, your imagery, etc. You know, Twitter was such a recognizable, not just the icon, not just the little bird, which was brilliant, but, like, the color blue. You know, it had so much cultural capital.
It was so nice, wasn't it? It was so nice. There's too many nice brands in the world. Everyone's nice, smiley. My brand needs to be warm and happy and nice colors and stuff like that. Along comes, you know, Musk. He's rebranded it. It's dark. You know, it is serious. It takes no prisoners. I love it. It's a dark brand. When I worked with McLaren many years ago, you know, they were like, we kill Ferrari. They were like, our benchmark, the only benchmark, well, we gave this to them. The only benchmark we have is nature. That's the level of arrogance. You know, the end of ours is just to get the car on the track and win. Second place is first for losers. And I think that sort of attitude of creating something slightly Spectre-ish, if you like,
it does look like
really
Spectre.
Interesting.
Okay, first of all, that was a great bit of name dropping when I worked on the McLaren brand, and I'm really very impressed with that. Yeah, okay, it looks like Spectre, but, like, it looks like he's trying to take over the world in some dark, scary way. I mean, you know, I do feel like it suits his image as kind of one fluffy Persian cat away from, you know, taking over the world. The guidelines are, by the way, are absolutely hilarious. I found them online, and they're like, basically they just say kind of, here's the brand, it's an X, it's black and white. Think about how you apply it, use your common sense. That's it. None of that 100-page guidelines. that most clients have. This is like one page that says, yeah, this is us, kind of do what we like with it. I mean, he puts two fingers up to brand, to all the rules of branding time and again. He is an iconic.
There are so many brands that are generic, dull, and boring, and along he comes with something that's authentically him, a bit of wit, a bit of humor. It's different, and it will stand out. It's getting noticed, you know. And let's see what happens. Let's see what happens to the actor.
Okay. So it brings us on to your sixth point, which is, you know, what you need to do is you need to clearly communicate your brand proposition. So what does X stand for? Because you just touched on something really interesting, that like it's really communicating him. And I do think it's doing a good job of communicating him. But is that really the job of, you know, of what was Twitter, you know, stood for something? And when he bought it, he said he was buying it to try to help humanity.
I don't buy that. I buy it with him trying to put people on Mars. I buy he's trying to make the world a better place with electric cars. I think this is a bit of a array into a new area for him. You know, it is social media. It is, you know, it is slightly different. I think, you know, he's talked about it since it's to be the everything app, you know, like WeChat in China. You know, it's social media, it's payment system, it's life, you know, use it for absolutely everything. And I think that's ultimately what his plans are. Maybe for this. I think it will change.
I don't know. I feel like I'm confused because I don't know whether he's trying to build the everything app, which is what, like, you know, Linda Yaccarino, the CEO, talked about. She talked about, you know, when it launched, about wanting to transform the global town square to integrate, you know, payments, banking, and everything else into this kind of global marketplace. I could have bought that, but I don't think that's what they've been doing. I think he's totally changed the debate and made it, you know, he's such a free speech absolutist and has, you know, it seems like he's got really distracted by the kind of his political desire to have a place where even the most egregiously horrendous people have a platform for free speech. So, you know, is it an everything app, or is it free speech, or is it just cult of the personality? Is he just an egomaniac who, you know, loves to have a big X? I mean, it's sort of his bat signal, you know, it's just Musk's bat signal that he's projecting to the world.
He's a brand in his own right. I mean, you know, some people argue that people can't be brands, but he is a brand. The Musk brand is a big and powerful brand. And frankly, you know, for many, it's a bit more interesting than some bird tweeting.
Yeah, I think to me, the clearest purpose of the brand, in my mind, is to service Musk's ego. And I don't think that's, you know, a sustainable path forward for a really compelling proposition that's going to last. But okay, look, so here's the final thing that we talked about was, you know, you said brand safety, protecting your brand's reputation. And this is where, for me, like, I feel like you're winning quite a lot of the other arguments about, you know, what a cool brand it is. But for me, this is the clincher where, you know, he has been re-platforming since he took it on. He's been re-platforming right-wing conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, who, you know, he falsely and repeatedly claimed that the massacre of small children, in which 20 children were killed in Sandy Hook School and 6 adults, he's claimed it was a hoax. And he was banned from Facebook, Spotify, Apple, and YouTube in 2018. And Musk re-platformed him along with crazy, you know, like anti-Semitic, misogynist, you know, Kanye West, Tommy Robinson, Andrew Tate, Marjorie Taylor Greene, people who are saying, you know, it's hate speech, and he is giving a platform to that. And, you know, his monthly users have dropped 15% in the first year, and amid concerns of a rise in hate speech. And, you know, his revenue has dropped 238 million in 2025 and 2024 so far. So, you know, I think that he really is using it for evil purposes.
Yeah, and I think we do have an agreement here, actually, because, you know, at the end of the day, no matter what you think, Twitter, now X, is a publishing platform. That he is a publisher, and there are things he needs to do as a publisher, and he needs some responsibility. You can't be doing all those crazy things if you are.
No, and he's losing advertisers.
Purposes a publisher.
Yeah, his customer. I mean, you know, he makes his revenue through advertisers. He's talked about moving away from that, but at the moment, and you know, when advertisers have boycotted the company, he got on an interview with a whole bunch of advertisers and told them all to go fuck themselves.
And the one thing you need for the brand, for your, as we talked about, protect your brand's reputation, you need trust. You need to have your customers follow you. You can't tell your customers and your partners to fuck off.
No, and I think I think that's where he has completely fallen down. And I think that the lack of brand safety, it's hitting revenue, it's hitting customers. It's not just a few, champagne socialists like me tweeting on about it, Xing on about it. Everyone is horrified at the hate speech, the misogyny, etc. So okay, all right. So what's next for X? I mean, I think
what's next for the brand that was once Twitter?
I want us to actually stick our necks out here, because I hate it when people sign off from things by going, only time will tell. We'll have to see. Like, come on, it's been a year. Like, what are our predictions? Okay, so do you think that right now, do you think the rebrand has been a success or a failure? And what's your prediction for X going forward as a brand?
Okay, so it's a long answer.
Mm-hmm.
I think rebrands are always hated at the beginning. It's just like, it's easy fodder for people to say, oh, I don't like that. It happened with so many rebrands. It always does. But time changes that. So I think, first of all, I do think actually give it time to change, right? I do think give it time. Secondly, the man is a genius. He is a rule breaker. He's an engineer. But I mentioned that thing about him being a publisher is starting to nag on me a little bit. But just bear with me, because success or failure, what's failure to him? This is a $40 billion folly, perhaps. It could be that he just wanted the platform for various purposes. He wants to create this WeChat, and it's going to all change. We just don't know. I wonder what it will evolve into. I just don't think it's going to be a social media platform in the future. But I think it's too big to fail. I think it's going to become a global conglomerate, and there's going to be a bat cave, and he's going to be sat in it.
Stroking his bloody white cat. Okay, so you see it succeeding. I mean, I think it's been a total fuck up, if you'll excuse my language. I think mainly because of 0.7. So, we can argue about the virtues of killing off the little blue bird and $20 billion. We can argue about whether we like an X and a black and white Unicode, whatever. And you've made a cogent argument for it being quite sexy. But for me, because of 0.7, because of the complete loss of brand trust, I think it's fascinating that he broke all the rules. And I think it's been fun to think about the rules of a rebrand in the context of somebody who literally broke all of the rules, right? And I feel like 6 out of the 7 points he kind of got away with. And it actually started to make me wonder if the rules of branding haven't changed, if maybe this the end of trademarks is something important. There is an iconoclasm to him, which is definitely, it's admirable. But in the end, I think he has broken faith with most right-thinking, non-racist, non-anti-Semitic, non-violent, non-white supremacist, truth-loving, sane individuals. And, and I know that some of America lives in this kind of this miasma of right-wing conspiracy theory stuff, but the rest of the world doesn't. And I don't believe that he has lived up to his ambition of saving free speech. I think he's shown us why absolute free speech is not a good idea. And in platforming people like Alex Jones and Andrew Tate, I think he's killed his own brand. And I think he is going to. I think that the X brand is going to fail. And I think it's going to tarnish the rest of his portfolio. And I think it's going to make him look, I think he's a terrific engineer. He's always going to be a terrific engineer, but I think he's fucked up Twitter. And I think he's made a massive hash of the branding.
I do agree with you on that. And I think it's really bad what he's done in terms of it being sort of social media and publisher, and he's allowing, hateful speech and that sort of stuff. But how it will be portrayed, that failure, I don't know. I think he'll spin it in a way that it'll be a success for him. That's my angle on it. So we will see. And
unfortunately, as you say, it doesn't matter to him, really. I mean, it doesn't matter. He can screw it up and walk away, and it's no big deal. If you are a small business out there wondering how to, rebrand if you need to for some reason, I think maybe do exactly the opposite of everything that Elon Musk has done. If you're a massive business if you're a multi-billionaire with billions of dollars who can take the risk, I think that
and afford to lose.
And it's been really interesting to see somebody break all the rules and kind of get away with a lot of it. I think if he just hadn't gone that last crazy mile in terms of breaking everybody's trust, I think he would have done. I would be sitting here saying he broke all the rules, he made a success of it. Wow, I need to change my thinking. As it is, I'm reassured that perhaps there is some value in like the traditional branding thinking after all, and you and I can live to earn a living another day.
Don't forget the 7 things.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, listen, that was great fun. Thank you very much for that. Tune in next week, same time next week. We will be dropping another podcast every week at this time, talking about issues to do with global marketing for both big and small businesses. But for now, thank you very much for your company. It's been great. All right, see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.